chosen one. Stop scrolling for a moment. Heaven has paused your timeline because this message is not random, it is divine intervention. You are not hearing these words by coincidence. You are hearing them because eternity has something to say to you. Right now, in this very breath of time, listen closely. There are moments when heaven interrupts the noise of your life to deliver an assignment wrapped inside revelation. This is one of those moments. You have felt it, haven't you? That invisible pull on your spirit. That sense that something greater than you is trying to get your attention. You have gone through days that didn't make sense, nights that seemed endless, and battles that no one saw. Yet through all of it, heaven has been whispering your name. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. And this moment, this divine interruption, is proof that heaven is still invested in your story. Chosen one. Stop scrolling for a moment. Heaven has paused your timeline because this message is not random, it is divine intervention. You are not hearing these words by coincidence. You are hearing them because eternity has something to say to you. Right now, in this very breath of time, listen closely. There are moments when heaven interrupts the noise of your life to deliver an assignment wrapped inside revelation. This is one of those moments. And right now, as you read these words, something within you is awakening. Your spirit recognizes truth even before your mind does. You can feel the weight of this moment pressing against your chest, the still, sacred pressure of the Holy Spirit calling you higher. Do not resist it. Do not dismiss it. This is not coincidence. This is divine timing. You are being summoned into a higher awareness of who you are in heaven's design. Your steps are ordered. Your tears have been counted. Your silence has been heard. You thought God was ignoring you, but He was orchestrating something so intricate that only patience could reveal it. You've been hidden not because you are forgotten, but because you are being prepared. Heaven hides its treasures until the appointed time, and chosen one, your time is drawing near. Heaven speaks through the ancient words in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to save many lives. These words are your confirmation. The delays were not denials. They were divine delays, designed to mature your faith and refine your endurance. Heaven has not forgotten what it promised you. Every word spoken over your life is still alive, still active, still on schedule. Do not give up now. Do not walk away when the manifestation is closer than it appears. Heaven is aligning everything, people, opportunities, and moments to meet your faith. What you've been waiting for is waiting for you, but it requires your full surrender. You cannot receive divine fulfillment with divided focus. God is asking for your complete attention. Right now, in this sacred interruption, this is the moment to lift your eyes again, to believe again, to hope again. What looked like endings are actually divine beginnings in disguise. Every closed door was a redirection toward your rightful place in the divine plan. And when heaven interrupts you, it's because heaven intends to accelerate you. You are not behind. You are perfectly positioned for what's next. Listen, chosen one. The world will try to pull your attention back into noise, distraction, and fear. But heaven is calling you to stay still long enough to hear divine strategy. You don't need to chase validation. You need to cultivate revelation. Because revelation, when obeyed, creates transformation. God doesn't need your speed. He needs your surrender. The more you trust, the more He moves. The more you align, the more He reveals. So take a breath. Let peace find you here. You are standing on sacred ground, in the middle of your ordinary life. God is speaking. The same voice that formed galaxies is speaking to your heart right now, telling you that your pain has purpose, your delay has design, and your story is not over. This message, this very one, is heaven's reminder that your destiny is bigger than your imagination. If you feel this stirring in your spirit, don't scroll away. Type the prophetic number 777 inches, the comments, as a sign of completion and divine perfection. Let heaven see your agreement. Let it be your declaration that you receive this message, that you are ready to step into what's been prepared for you since the beginning of time. And before you go, like, share, and subscribe so that others, the other chosen ones wandering in silence, can hear what heaven is saying today. The interruption is over. The message has been delivered. Now, walk in awareness that you are marked, guided, and chosen for such a time as this. You have always known there was something different about you, though you couldn't explain it. From your earliest memories, you felt out of place, never quite fitting in, never blending easily with the world around you. You tried to adapt, to move with the rhythm of everyone else, but your spirit beat to a different drum. That, beloved chosen one, was not a flaw. It was the first sign of your divine mark. Heaven placed something inside you before you ever took your first breath. It wasn't visible to the human eye, but it carried weight in the unseen realm. Angels recognized it. Darkness feared it. And because of it, your path was never going to look like anyone else's. Every rejection, every betrayal, every closed door, they were not random acts of cruelty. They were part of heaven's strategy to separate you for sacred purpose. You were not being punished. You were being preserved. You've asked, why me? More times than you can count. Why the loneliness? Why the misunderstanding? Why do people misread your heart? Because, dear one, you are sealed for something holy. Ordinary surroundings cannot hold extraordinary purpose. God's fingerprint on your life makes you incompatible with mediocrity. You may have tried to tone yourself down, to quiet your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But heaven never called you to be dim. You were designed to shine in darkness, to carry the fire that reveals truth. And that fire, though divine, has cost you something. The higher your calling, the deeper your refining. You've walked through seasons that burned everything false away. Relationships, ambitions, identities you once wore to survive. But those flames weren't meant to destroy you. They were meant to reveal the mark that had always been there. Like gold in the furnace, you are being purified until only what is eternal remains. Every time someone walked away, heaven whispered, it's part of the separation. Every time you felt unseen, heaven was saying, I'm hiding you until the right time. What you mistook for abandonment was divine protection. What you thought was loss was actually placement, God positioning you for revelation. Because before He can announce the chosen, He must first conceal them. And now, you are standing in the aftermath of that hiding season, carrying invisible proof that heaven knows your name. You may still feel unsure, but your spirit knows what's coming. You've been sensing that something greater is unfolding, a silent confirmation that all the pain had purpose. The mark upon you is awakening. You can feel it in your bones, in your dreams, in your sudden awareness that not everything around you can stay. You are being called out, once again, to walk in uncommon obedience. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That verse is not just history, it's prophecy written into your identity. God is reminding you that your difference was designed, not accidental. Every season that made you question your worth was actually confirming your assignment. You were known before you were seen. You were chosen before you were ready. And heaven has not changed its mind about you. The mark of the chosen isn't about perfection, it's about recognition. When darkness sees you, it remembers the light you carry. That's why warfare intensifies when you start walking toward purpose. You were never meant to live unnoticed. You are a signal to the spiritual realm that God is moving through you. Every challenge, every delay, every spiritual battle, these are not signs of rejection, but validation that you are carrying something worth contending for. So when you feel isolated, don't assume God has left you. The hidden mark upon your spirit draws both divine favor and spiritual resistance. That's why peace can feel distant one day and overwhelming the next. You are learning to navigate between realms called to exist in the natural while carrying the supernatural. This tension isn't punishment, it's training. You are being taught how to carry the weight of destiny without breaking. Chosen one. You have been refined to recognize what others ignore. You see beyond the surface. You sense what heaven is doing, even when the world sleeps. And this sensitivity, though heavy, is sacred. You were designed to walk with awareness, to discern heaven's movement, and respond in obedience. The mark upon you is not fading, it's glowing brighter as the world darkens. Chosen one. The battle found you long before you even knew its name. You didn't go looking for war. War came looking for you. Because the moment you awakened to who you truly are, the atmosphere around you shifted. Hell took notice. Every time you spoke light into darkness, the enemy trembled. Because he recognized the authority you carry. You've been under attack not because you're weak, but because you are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. The battle you didn't see coming was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to reveal what's inside you. You see, strength is not built in comfort. It is forged in conflict. Every sleepless night, every moment of confusion, every unseen tear was training for spiritual warfare. You've been learning to stand firm, even when you feel surrounded. You've learned that peace is not the absence of battle, it's the presence of God within it. The truth is, you've been targeted because your spirit disrupts the plans of darkness. You carry light that exposes deception. You walk into rooms and things begin to shift attitudes, emotions, even the spiritual climate. You've wondered why people react to you without reason. It's because your presence carries conviction. Demons recognize the mark of the anointed. Even when humans do not, the enemy doesn't waste his energy on the ordinary. He only wages war against threats. The moment you decided to pursue purity, truth, and obedience, you declared war without realizing it. Every temptation you faced, every setback that tried to silence your voice, was a counterattack meant to drain your faith. But God allowed it so you could discover your true weapon, resilience. What was meant to break you has built you instead. Every wound you carry has become a doorway through which His power flows. Listen carefully. The battle isn't around you. It's for you. It's about your influence, your obedience, your anointing. If the enemy can't destroy your purpose, he'll try to distract you from it. He'll use noise, fatigue, comparison, and doubt to make you question the calling already written over your life. But heaven is saying, stand your ground. The storm you're facing is proof that your light is spreading farther than you think. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Those ancient words still breathe today. You are not fighting alone. Heaven's armies surround you. The same God who parted seas for His people is making a way for you through every obstacle. When you feel powerless, that's when His strength steps in. The moment you stop striving and start trusting, divine intervention activates. Chosen one. Understand this. The intensity of the warfare is prophetic. It means breakthrough is near. The enemy doesn't fight what he's already lost. He fights what's about to manifest. You've been sensing the pressure increasing because heaven is about to release something through you that darkness fears. Stay steady. The shaking is not a sign of failure. It's the sound of chains breaking. You were born for battle. Even if you never asked for it, you were designed to walk through fire and come out refined. Every scar is sacred. It's proof that grace held you when strength ran out. You've survived attacks that were meant to erase you. Yet, here you stand, stronger, wiser, more aware of your authority. That's what victory looks like in the realm of the Spirit. It's not the absence of wounds, but the endurance to keep moving while they heal. So take courage. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. The same fire that tried to consume you will now become the light that guides others. The enemy wanted you silent, but God is turning your battle cry into a beacon for those still in darkness. Every storm you've faced is equipping you to speak with power, to lead with compassion, to carry glory without pride. This battle is not random, it's recognition. Now, if you can feel this truth stirring in your spirit, I want you to type, "I stand firm," in the comments, not as a ritual, but as a declaration. When you write it, you're not just typing words, you're prophesying over your own life. You're agreeing with heaven that no matter what comes, you will not bend, you will not retreat, and you will not surrender your calling. Let that comment be your line in the sand the moment you chose faith over fear, conviction over compromise. You are a warrior in divine armor. The darkness has already lost its claim on you. The battle may be fierce, but the outcome is fixed. Victory is written in your name. Chosen one. You have felt the ache of being alone in rooms full of people. The quiet weight of solitude has followed you through seasons when you thought you should have been surrounded by understanding hearts. You have looked around and wondered, why does no one see what I carry? You've tried to explain the fire in your spirit, the burden in your heart, but the words always fell short. The truth is, the language of the called is not easily understood by those who are not walking the same path. You've mistaken isolation for punishment, but it has always been preparation. Heaven does its greatest work in silence. When God separates you, He's not removing comfort, He's removing noise. The noise of opinions, expectations, distractions, because your next chapter demands clarity, not company. You have been hidden, not abandoned. The walls that surrounded you were not barriers. They were boundaries built by grace to protect your development. There are seasons when God will allow you to walk alone so that you can finally hear His voice without interference. The loneliness you feel is sacred ground. It's where revelation is birthed. You've been in a holy classroom, learning lessons that crowds could never teach. The reason no one seemed to understand your process is because heaven wrote a syllabus tailored only to you. Every tear, every unanswered question, every quiet night, it was all part of a divine education. You may not have realized it, but solitude has sharpened your discernment. You've learned to recognize truth by presence, not popularity. You've discovered that not every voice that sounds spiritual carries the Spirit. In silence, you learned the difference between noise and anointing, between charisma and calling. That's why your spirit now resists counterfeit comfort. The same spaces that once attracted you now feel empty. It's not arrogance, it's growth. There was a time you begged God for community, for companionship, for connection. You didn't understand that before God gives you people, He must give you identity. You had to know who you were before you could walk with others without losing yourself again. Many people never reach their fullness because they mistake being seen for being known. Heaven couldn't allow that for you. You've been separated so you could be solidified, so that when you stand before nations, your voice will not echo confusion, but conviction. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." After, those words hold a mystery. Power is always born in private before it is revealed in public. The secret place has been your forge. You didn't realize it. But every whispered prayer, every kyat surrender, every hidden act of obedience has been shaping your authority. You've been cultivating intimacy with God away from the eyes of men, and that intimacy will become your anointing. Loneliness has also taught you dependency. When no one else could comfort you, you discovered the voice of the Comforter. When no one else could guide you, you began to sense divine direction rising within. You've been separated so you could be solidified, so that when you stand before nations, your voice will not echo confusion, but conviction. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." After, those words hold a mystery. Power is always born in private before it is revealed in public. Many are afraid of silence because they fear what will be revealed there. But you have endured it long enough to know that silence isn't empty, it's full of instruction. You've learned to sit with your pain until it turns into prophecy. You've learned to wait until waiting becomes worship. Chosen one. The reason you feel different is because you are being refined into something the world has not seen before. Your isolation is not rejection, it is recognition. Heaven sees you as trustworthy. You can be alone without being lost, silent without being forgotten, unseen without being unimportant. When the time comes, God will release you from this solitude, and you will carry wisdom that could only be forged in stillness. Until then, embrace this sacred quiet. Let it finish its work in you. When you emerge, you won't just come out healed, you'll come out whole. And those who once misunderstood your silence will witness the radiance of someone who has walked with God in the wilderness and returned carrying his voice. Chosen one. Every promise heaven ever whispered over your life still stands. Even in the moments when you doubted, even in the seasons when you drifted, the covenant remained unbroken. God does not sign temporary agreements. He writes eternal ones sealed in mercy. What he began in you, he intends to finish. Those storms may rage and the path may twist. The promise still glows beneath the ashes. You have to understand. What surrounds you may look ordinary, but what covers you is divine. You walk beneath a covenant older than the mountains, stronger than the winds, and more certain than time itself. Before you ever said yes, heaven already prepared the inheritance. You are not striving to earn it, you are learning to walk worthy of it. That is why your life has never fit into normal rhythms, because your footsteps were scripted by eternity. Think of it like this. A seed can't argue with the soil. It must be buried before it breaks open. The promise in your life works the same way. It was buried under pain, under waiting, under the silence that made you question if God still remembered your name. But in the unseen, something sacred was happening. The covenant was taking root. And now, just as the seed bursts through the earth when the season shifts, you are on the verge of sprouting into the fulfillment that was written for you long ago. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 23, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful." Those words are your anchor. Faithful. That single word holds the entire weight of heaven's reliability. Even when you let go, he held on. Even when you wandered, the covenant followed. Every time you fell, grace refused to release its grip. This is the unseen contract love that refuses to expire. Maybe right now it feels like you've been living beneath unkept promises. Maybe you've prayed, fasted, believed, and still seen delay. But remember, God's covenants aren't built on your pace. They unfold according to his timing. The delay is not evidence of abandonment, it's evidence of divine patience. Heaven waits until your character can carry what your faith has requested. Every moment of waiting has been preparing you for what's coming, not punishing you for what's past. You might not realize it, but you've been walking through divine rehearsals. Each small act of faith, every moment you chose obedience over convenience, was heaven testing your trust. Like a potter shaping clay, God has been pressing, molding, stretching, and refining you until you can hold the weight of the blessing without cracking. You are the vessel being fashioned for the covenant's manifestation. You will not leak what he pours into you. You will overflow. And when the fulfillment finally arrives, it will not come as a whisper, but as a flood. The doors that were shut will open as though they'd been waiting for your touch. Opportunities will flow toward you, not by effort, but by divine attraction. Because when heaven recognizes its own covenant, creation responds. Every delay, every disappointment will reveal itself as a thread woven into a tapestry of faithfulness. Nothing was wasted, not even your tears. Now, chosen one, as you receive these words, take a moment to breathe. Let gratitude rise like incense from your heart. The same God who started this story is writing its next chapter, and while you walk it out, I ask something simple, not for me, but for the mission that carries this message. If this word has touched your spirit, if you felt heaven's whisper through it, let your support become part of the covenant's echo. You can share this message so another weary heart might find strength again. You can like it, not as a routine click, but as a sign of agreement, an amen, in digital form. You can subscribe, not out of obligation, but to stay connected to the flow of words that build faith and remind you of your identity. And if you feel led to go further, to sow into the soil that produces these messages, then give, not out of pressure, but out of gratitude. Every seed you plant helps this light reach those still walking in shadow. Think of it as lighting another torch from yours. The flame doesn't diminish, it multiplies. That's how the covenant spreads from heart to heart. From one chosen one to another, you are part of something eternal, something far bigger than a single screen or voice. You are part of the continuation of heaven's promise to awaken its people. So, walk in confidence. Beloved, the covenant stands unshaken. The same God who spoke over you will perform it. Let every act of faith, every click, every share, every offering of support become a ripple of obedience that carries this message farther than your eyes can see. For what God has written concerning you cannot be undone. Chosen one, obedience is the turning key that unlocks destiny. Heaven moves not at the sound of your wishes, but at the rhythm of your surrender. Every time you say yes to divine direction, even when you don't understand, you push open invisible doors. Every time you hesitate, delay, or compromise, something that was meant to flow freely becomes restrained. The spiritual realm waits for obedience. It's the signal that heaven can release what it's been holding in reserve for you. You've stood at crossroads before, hearing that gentle whisper inside, "Do it my way." Yet, fear, doubt, or weariness sometimes pulled you elsewhere. You tried to control outcomes, to make sense of instructions that felt unreasonable. But God never asked you to understand first. He asked you to trust. Your next miracle doesn't need explanation. It needs obedience. There is always a moment when obedience feels heavier than logic. That's because faith doesn't rely on sight. It requires courage. When you obey without proof, you are telling heaven, "I trust the author more than I trust the process." And heaven always honors that kind of surrender. What you lose in comfort, you gain in clarity. What you release, God multiplies. Look back for a moment. Remember the times you almost gave up, but chose to trust anyway. Remember how peace found you in the middle of confusion. How provision came from nowhere. That was heaven showing you the pattern. Obedience first, blessing after. The order never changes. Disobedience delays destiny. Surrender accelerates it. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 2. All these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. That's not poetic language, it's spiritual law. Obedience creates movement. It draws favor like a magnet. It turns waiting seasons into walking seasons. But it also tests motive. God doesn't want mechanical compliance. He wants surrendered hearts. True obedience isn't about performance, it's about trust. You may not realize it, but obedience also silences warfare. When you move in alignment, the enemy loses authority to accuse. Every time you delay, it gains time to distract. Every time you act in faith, he he loses ground. That's why disobedience feels heavy. It's resistance from darkness that knows what will happen once you fully yield. The enemy doesn't fear your words, he fears your obedience. Because obedience manifests God's power on earth through you. Sometimes obedience will isolate you. It will pull you away from comfort zones, from familiar people, from plans that once made sense. You'll feel the weight of misunderstanding. But remember, obedience is rarely celebrated at first. Noah looked foolish, building an ark without rain. Abraham looked reckless, leaving his homeland with no destination. Mary looked scandalous, carrying a promise she couldn't explain. Yet heaven wrote their obedience into history. Your story is next in that lineage. God has been patient with your hesitations. He's whispered softly, allowed delays, given confirmations. But this is a sacred moment, one of those crossroads that heaven marks in eternity. Your next step matters. The next yes you give will activate things generations have prayed for. You are not obeying only for yourself, you are obeying for everyone connected to your assignment. Whole lineages will shift because you decided to do what heaven asked, even when it cost you something. You have to understand, partial obedience is still disobedience. Delayed obedience is still rebellion, disguised as reasoning. Heaven doesn't want your logic, it wants your loyalty. The cost of obedience may be high, but the price of resistance is higher. Every time you ignore divine instruction, you trade eternal reward for temporary comfort. But every time you say yes, even trembling, heaven releases. Provision you didn't know was waiting. Chosen one. This is the moment to choose trust over hesitation. Heaven is aligning resources, relationships, and opportunities, but they will only open as you move. Don't analyze the path, step into it. Don't negotiate the command, fulfill it. What you're carrying is time-sensitive. Obedience is not about control, it's about cooperation with divine timing. Right now, if this word resonates deep within you, type 444 inches, the comments. That number represents divine order and the establishment of God's will on earth. When you write it, you're not typing digits, you're declaring alignment. You're saying, I choose obedience. I choose order. I choose to walk in step with heaven's rhythm. Let that be your signal to heaven that you are ready for the next level of instruction. And as you do, feel the weight begin to lift. Because once you surrender, peace follows. Once you obey, provision arrives. Once you align, destiny accelerates. Heaven is watching, waiting for your next yes. Oh, chosen one. You have walked through seasons when the noise around you was louder than your own thoughts. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, a direction, a voice speaking over your destiny. Yet, in the midst of that noise, there was always one sound that remained steady, a whisper you couldn't ignore. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't chaos. It was the quiet voice that called you back home to truth. That voice, beloved, was never your imagination. It was God speaking in the wilderness. The wilderness is not a place of punishment, it's a place of precision. When everything else falls silent, heaven can finally be heard clearly. God didn't abandon you in the desert. He brought you there to tune your spirit. He needed to separate you from the crowd so that you could recognize His tone, His rhythm, His unique way of speaking to you. Because if you can't hear Him in solitude, you won't recognize Him in the crowd. Obedience is not about control, It's about cooperation with divine timing. Right now, if this word resonates deep within you, type 444 inches, the comments. That number represents divine order and the establishment of God's will on earth. When you write it, you're not typing digits, you're declaring alignment. You're saying, I choose obedience. I choose order. I choose to walk in step with heaven's rhythm. Let that be your signal to heaven that you are ready for the next level of instruction. There have been moments when you asked, is this really you? Lord, you wanted certainty, signs, confirmations. But heaven doesn't train warriors through constant reassurance. It trains them through trust. You are being taught to recognize His whisper without needing the thunder. The mark of maturity is not how often you hear God, but how deeply you trust what He already said. As the prophet Elijah spoke, as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12, and after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper, and that's where you find Him, in the gentle whisper, not in the chaos, not in the spectacle, but in the quiet moments when everything else fades. It's there that heaven reveals its secrets. The wilderness becomes sacred because it trains your ears to hear what others ignore. The enemy tries to twist this silence into loneliness. He tells you that you've been forgotten, that the stillness means heaven is quiet. But silence does not mean absence, it means intimacy. God speaks less when you begin to know Him more deeply, because now you can feel His direction without constant explanation. That's not distance, it's closeness. It's like the way a parent doesn't need to shout when the child has learned to recognize their glance. You've been in a season where discernment is being refined. Every distraction has been exposed. Every false voice has been unmasked. You've started to recognize when something sounds spiritual but lacks spirit. That sensitivity is not paranoia, it's protection. Heaven is teaching you to guard your gates, to filter what enters your mind, your heart, and your atmosphere. The more clearly you hear, the more fiercely you must protect that clarity. Don't rush out of this season of stillness. The wilderness doesn't last forever, but it leaves you changed. Once you've learned the sound of God's whisper, no counterfeit can deceive you. That's why the wilderness is so valuable. It's where intimacy is proven and discernment is born. You are learning that revelation is not about quantity, but about depth. A single word from God carries more weight than 1,000 empty affirmations. You've been asking for direction, but sometimes direction comes disguised as delay. God slows you down to save you from premature moves. Every pause is intentional. He's aligning you with His rhythm, not your impatience. The world celebrates speed, but heaven values synchronization. You are learning to move not when it feels convenient, but when heaven says, now. The voice in the wilderness is not just calling you to listen, it's calling you to respond. Every revelation demands obedience. Every whisper carries instruction. You are not just a listener, you are a vessel through which divine words become visible actions. The way you live will echo the voice you follow. So, breathe. Chosen one. The stillness you're standing in is not the absence of movement, it's the preparation before acceleration. When heaven speaks again, you will know. You won't have to chase clarity, it will find you. You won't have to strive to hear Him. His presence will unfold like sunrise over your soul. The wilderness is not ending, it is transforming. Soon, the whisper will become a word, The word will become a calling, and the calling will become movement. When that happens, you won't need to question if it's time. You'll simply know, because the same voice that called you into the wilderness will call you out of it, and this time, you'll walk out carrying revelation that cannot be silenced. Chosen one. Sometimes, heaven tests not your strength, but your loyalty. It is easy to praise when doors open, but it is sacred to worship when they stay closed. There are seasons when God withholds what you desire, not to deny you, but to discern you. He wants to see if you will remain faithful when faith feels unrewarded. These are the quiet examinations of the soul, the moments when obedience costs you comfort and trust costs you control. You've been walking through one of those seasons. The prayers you prayed seemed unanswered. The opportunities you expected dissolved before your eyes, and the promises you held onto felt suspended in the air. You wondered if heaven forgot. But, beloved, silence is not neglect, it's measurement. God was watching, not what you would say in the waiting, but what you would do. Would you still honor him when nothing was working? Would you still hold your peace when your patience was stretched thin? The truth is, loyalty cannot be proven in blessing, it must be proven in delay. When the blessings flow, gratitude is natural. But when the river dries, devotion must dig deeper roots. The loyalty heaven looks for is not emotional, it's anchored. It stands when circumstances tremble. It praises when understanding fails. It clings when the promise seems distant. You, chosen one, have been in that proving ground. God has allowed certain things to remain out of reach so that your love could be purified. He wanted to show you what part of your worship was built on feeling and what part was built on faith. The difference between the two is revealed only in fire. And make no mistake, fire doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to define you. What burns away wasn't meant to stay. What remains is the truth of your devotion. You see, heaven's tests are never about humiliation, they are about qualification. Before God can trust you with influence, he must be sure you won't worship the influence more than the one who gave it. Before he places weight in your hands, he has to see what you'll do when they're empty. That's why he sometimes delays reward. He is watching your response to waiting. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 11, verse 5, "The Lord tests the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion." End quote. The testing of the righteous is not cruelty, it is confidence. God tests what he trusts. If he's testing you, it's because he sees in you the capacity to endure refinement without losing reverence. You are not being punished, you are being polished. Think of loyalty like a bridge. Every step of obedience you take strengthens its foundation. Every act of trust adds another plank of faith across uncertainty. But shortcuts, complaints, or compromises weaken the bridge, causing cracks that can't carry the weight of your calling. That's why God refuses to let you skip the process. He's building in you the kind of faith that can hold nations, generations, and movements. In this process, you will watch others seem to move ahead of you. Their paths will look easier, their rewards faster. Do not compare. Comparison is a trap designed to make you abandon your preparation. What you are carrying requires time, pressure, and patience. Oil is not drawn from the olive without crushing, and gold is not purified without heat. Likewise, loyalty cannot be proven without delay. Sometimes, heaven will ask you to give without seeing return, to love without recognition, to obey without understanding. It's in those hidden sacrifices that your loyalty shines brightest, because God is not measuring what you do for Him, He's measuring why you do it. Pure loyalty expects nothing in exchange but His presence. You might not realize it yet, but these very tests are unlocking new authority in your spirit. You are learning endurance. You are learning to stand even when feelings fade. And when this season passes, and it will, you will not only have your promise, you will have the strength to protect it. Heaven doesn't release untested blessings because untested hearts can't carry them. Chosen one. Remain faithful. The delay is not denial, it is divine filtration. God is filtering your motives, refining your love, and deepening your roots. And when He is done, your loyalty will speak louder than your words. Heaven will look at your heart and say, "This one can be trusted." Chosen one. Sometimes it feels like your entire world is breaking apart. Doesn't it? The plans you built crumble. The people you trusted drift away. And the strength you once had seems to vanish overnight. You keep wondering, what went wrong? But what if this breaking is not punishment, it's transformation? What if what feels like collapse is actually construction from heaven's perspective? You see, God doesn't rebuild on shaky foundations. Before He can raise you higher, He must first remove what cannot sustain the weight of your destiny. That means relationships, habits, or even mindsets that once served, you will suddenly start to fall away. It's unsettling. Yes, but it's divine surgery. Heaven is tearing down what's temporary to make room for what's eternal. You've been crying over doors that closed, not realizing they were exits from danger. You've been mourning what left, not understanding that God was protecting you from counterfeit alignments. When everything breaks, it's easy to panic. But heaven calls this process refinement, like a potter breaking and reshaping the clay. God is molding you into a vessel fit for His next outpouring. It hurts because transformation always does. It demands surrender. You can't rebuild while still clinging to what's collapsing. The Holy Spirit is whispering, let it fall. Don't try to hold together what heaven is dismantling. You prayed for newness. And this breaking is the answer. New wine can't be poured into old skins. The destruction you feel is making space for divine architecture. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, still echo today. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. All things, not just the easy, the beautiful, the celebrated, but all things, even the heartbreak, even the delay, even the silence. The breaking isn't evidence that God has left. It's proof that He's working in ways beyond your comprehension. You may look around and see rubble, but heaven sees a blueprint. The same God who allows the tearing down already holds the plans for the rebuilding. Nothing is wasted. Not one tear, not one sleepless night, not one moment of confusion. Every shattered piece is being rearranged into a pattern of purpose. The truth is, brokenness reveals what strength hides. When your plans collapse, your dependence shifts from your ability to God's sovereignty. You stop striving and start surrendering, and in that surrender, transformation begins. The version of you that walked into this season cannot walk into the next. That's why the breaking had to happen. You are shedding what no longer fits the destiny ahead. Chosen one. Remember this. Sometimes God answers prayers by ending what you thought would last forever. You asked Him to make you stronger, so He allowed pressure. You asked Him to use you, so He stripped away distractions. You asked for purpose, so He broke comfort. The very pain that confuses you is the tool that's shaping your anointing. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. The breaking isn't evidence of failure. It's the sound of your foundation being fortified. You are learning to stand on truth, not emotion, on conviction, not applause. When you rise from this, you will carry wisdom that only fire can teach. So breathe through the breaking. Cry if you must, but don't curse the process. The cracks in your heart are where the light gets in. Let them remain, for they are proof that grace has reached you. One day, you'll look back and realize that what tried to destroy you actually revealed you. You'll see that every fracture became a doorway to deeper faith. Now, if this message resonates deep within your spirit, if you feel that this breaking season has been your silent classroom, then I invite you to type, "I rise again," in the comments. Write it not as an empty phrase, but as a declaration of resurrection power. When you say those words, you are prophesying over your own soul. I will not remain in pieces. I will rise rebuilt, refined, and renewed. Heaven recognizes such declarations as agreements with destiny. Each comment becomes a seed of faith, saying, even in the breaking, I trust the builder. End quote. Hold this truth close. The breaking before the rising is not the end, it's the beginning. You are not being destroyed, you are being designed for glory. When the dust settles, the world will not see your ruin, they will see your rebirth. Chosen one. You once prayed for power, but did you know that heaven answers that prayer not with crowns, but with crosses, not with applause, but with assignment? Many ask for authority, yet few understand that divine power always comes wrapped in responsibility. When God places a mantle on your shoulders, He is not simply giving you influence, He is entrusting you with the weight of His heart. To carry that weight is no small thing. It demands purity when compromise would be easier. It demands compassion when judgment would feel justified. Power in the kingdom is not measured by how loudly you command, but by how quietly you serve. Heaven's leaders are born from humility, not ambition. You are being shaped into one of them, a torchbearer who carries light without burning others. There have been moments when you felt the heaviness of your calling and wanted to set it down. You told God, "This is too much for me." And perhaps you even envied those who seemed free from responsibility, those who could walk lightly through life while you carried invisible burdens. But hear this truth: the mantle you carry is not punishment, it's purpose. The weight you feel is not there to crush you, but to anchor you. It keeps you grounded, so you won't drift when the winds of distraction blow. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 7, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that power is from God." You are that jar of clay, fragile, human, imperfect, and yet heaven saw you fit to hold treasure. That treasure is divine influence, the ability to shift atmospheres, heal hearts, and reveal truth through your presence. But the vessel must stay humble, or the treasure becomes distorted. The responsibility of the chosen is to carry light without claiming ownership of it. This calling will stretch you. You will have to forgive when you'd rather retreat. You will have to serve when no one thanks you. You will have to love when others misunderstand you. But this is the mark of true authority, power under restraint. Even Christ himself washed feet before he ascended to the throne. You are walking in his footsteps. Learning that true greatness is not in being noticed, but in being faithful. And as you walk, I ask you to remember something sacred. This journey is not walked alone. You are that jar of clay, fragile, human, imperfect, and yet heaven saw you fit to hold treasure. That treasure is divine influence. The ability to shift atmospheres, heal hearts, and reveal truth through your presence. But the vessel must stay humble, or the treasure becomes distorted. The responsibility of the chosen is to carry light without claiming ownership of it. This calling will stretch you. You will have to forgive when you'd rather retreat. When you share, imagine you're lighting another torch in the darkness, passing flame to flame until night turns to dawn for someone else. When you subscribe, see it as stepping into a covenant of continual growth, choosing to stay connected to the flow of revelation that feeds your soul. And if you feel led to donate, do it with the understanding that you're sowing into soil already producing fruit. When you share, imagine you're lighting another torch in the darkness, passing flame to flame until night turns to dawn for someone else. When you subscribe, see it as stepping into a covenant of continual growth, choosing to stay connected to the flow of revelation that feeds your soul. And if you feel led to donate, do it with the understanding that you're sowing into soil already producing fruit. You will have to serve when no one thanks you. You will have to love when others misunderstand you. But this is the mark of true authority, power under restraint. Even Christ himself washed feet before he ascended to the throne. You are walking in his footsteps. Learning that true greatness is not in being noticed, but in being faithful. And as you walk, I ask you to remember something sacred. This journey is not walked alone. When you move, angels adjust formation. When you pray, mountains shift quietly in the background. You have been given divine responsibility because heaven trusts you to handle it well. As you continue walking this sacred road, know this: every act of generosity, every click of faith, every whispered yes strengthens the bridge between your obedience and someone else's awakening. You are not just supporting a message, you are sustaining a movement. Together, we are carrying this fire forward. Chosen one, you may not realize it, but every day you wake up, a quiet clash begins around you. It's not the kind of battle fought with swords or visible enemies. It's a war of allegiance, waged in choices, thoughts, and attitudes. The kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness contend for influence over your decisions. Each word you speak, each action you take, becomes a vote for one side or the other. You've felt it, the invisible tension pulling at your spirit. On one hand, peace calls to you. On the other, distractions whisper for attention. One moment you feel filled with faith. The next, you sense fear creeping in. This is not instability. It's evidence that you're on the front lines of a spiritual war. The enemy has noticed your progress, your growing awareness, and he cannot allow you to advance without resistance. Understand this: spiritual warfare is not only about fighting demons or rebuking darkness, it's about protecting your focus, The enemy doesn't need to destroy you to defeat you. He only needs to divide your attention. If he can keep your eyes on chaos, he can pull them away from purpose. That's why this battle often manifests through exhaustion, distraction, or confusion. It's not always external. Often, it's fought in your mind. But you were not left defenseless. Heaven has equipped you with spiritual armor, not as symbolism, but as a strategy. When you move, angels adjust formation. When you pray, mountains shift quietly in the background. You have been given divine responsibility because heaven trusts you to handle it well. As you continue walking this sacred road, know this: every act of generosity, every click of faith, every whispered yes strengthens the bridge between your obedience and someone else's awakening. You are not just supporting a message, you are sustaining a movement. Together, we are carrying this fire forward. As the Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." 7. These words are not ancient theory. They are a blueprint for awareness. The real war is unseen, but its effects are visible. Broken peace, stolen joy, misplaced faith. That's why your discernment is precious. The more you see clearly, the harder it becomes for darkness to deceive you. The clash between kingdoms happens in moments that seem insignificant. When you forgive instead of holding grudges, light wins. When you choose integrity over convenience, light wins. When you speak hope in a room filled with bitterness, light wins again. Victory in the spiritual realm looks like quiet consistency in the natural one. You win battles every day without realizing it, simply by refusing to become what tried to harm you. Still, this warfare is exhausting, and heaven knows it. There will be days when the tension feels relentless, when every prayer feels like a whisper against a storm. On those days, remember this truth: the power of light is not in noise, but in endurance. Darkness cannot overcome what refuses to stop shining. Your persistence is warfare. Every act of endurance is a declaration that you belong to the unshakable kingdom. You may sometimes wonder why God doesn't simply silence the opposition. But the clash of kingdoms isn't just about testing your strength, it's about revealing it. The struggle reveals what's divine within you. Just as pressure reveals the value of gold, opposition reveals the authenticity of faith. Without resistance, you would never discover how resilient your spirit truly is. When you wake up tomorrow and feel the same battle begin again, don't be discouraged. Instead, remember that warriors don't rest because the fight is over. They rest because they know who wins. Your posture of peace is your greatest weapon. The enemy can't read your thoughts, but he trembles at your calm, because calm means you trust something greater than the chaos. This war isn't going away, but neither is your authority. You were born for this. You were equipped before you were aware. You carry heaven's banner into every situation, whether at work, in your home, or within your mind. Every breath you take as a chosen one is resistance to darkness. You may stumble, but you never surrender. So stand tall. Let your faith be your flag. Let your peace be your sword. Let your compassion be your strategy. You're not just surviving this clash, you're shifting its outcome. Every moment you choose light, heaven advances. Every time you resist temptation, another chain breaks. And though you may not see it now, every quiet victory echoes in eternity. When you wake up tomorrow and feel the same battle begin again, don't be discouraged. Instead, remember that warriors don't rest because the fight is over. They rest because they know who wins. Your posture of peace is your greatest weapon. The enemy can't read your thoughts, but he trembles at your calm, because calm means you trust something greater than the chaos. This war isn't going away, but neither is your authority. You were born for this. You were equipped before you were aware. Every act of endurance is a declaration that you belong to the unshakable kingdom. You may sometimes wonder why God doesn't simply silence the opposition, but the clash of kingdoms isn't just about testing your strength, it's about revealing it. The struggle reveals what's divine within you. Just as pressure reveals the value of gold, opposition reveals the authenticity of faith. Without resistance, you would never discover how resilient your spirit truly is. You are entering a prophetic season where information from heaven will move through you in whispers, symbols, and dreams. You might sense emotions that aren't yours, or receive flashes of insight that seem too precise to ignore. Don't be afraid of this. The awakening is not a burden, it's a gift. You are being trained to interpret heaven's language. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. As it was written in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 28, "And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions." That word is unfolding in your life now. The outpouring is not limited to prophets or preachers. It's reaching everyone who has ears to hear. You, chosen one, are among them. Heaven is pouring vision into your spirit so you can guide, encourage, and intercede for those still lost in confusion. But understand this, with revelation comes responsibility. God does not awaken sight without purpose. Every dream, every impression, every spiritual nudge has weight. You are not called to chase mystery for curiosity's sake. You are called to steward revelation with wisdom. The prophetic is sacred because it bridges two worlds, heaven's voice and humanity's need. When you speak what God shows you, eternity touches earth. This is why discernment must rise alongside revelation. Not every vision is divine. Not every whisper holy. The more sensitive your spirit becomes, the more selective you must be with your surroundings. Guard your atmosphere. Protect your peace. The enemy would love to distort the frequency of your hearing with fear, distraction, or pride. But humility is your safeguard. The purer your heart, the clearer your hearing. The awakening may also come with solitude. Many won't understand what you're experiencing. Some will call you too sensitive, too intense, too deep. But heaven is not apologizing for your sensitivity. It designed it. Prophets are not meant to blend in. They are meant to perceive beyond the noise. You are being recalibrated to hear what others miss. The isolation you feel is not rejection, it's refinement. There will be nights when God wakes you at strange hours, when your heart beats with urgency and your lips whisper prayers you don't recall learning. Don't resist it. Heaven often speaks when the world sleeps. You've been chosen to be a night watchman in the spirit, a guardian of moments, a carrier of messages. a vessel for divine downloads. As your awareness grows, so will your influence. People will begin to seek your counsel, not because you know more, but because your words carry weight. You will notice atmospheres shift when you enter rooms. That is not imagination, it's authority. Prophetic presence carries heaven's vibration, and darkness cannot coexist with it. Chosen one. This is your season of activation. What you once felt as faint impressions will soon become clear instruction. Dreams will become directions. Visions will become validation. You are not stepping into something new, you are stepping into what has always been within you. Now awakened by time and obedience. If this message resonates in your spirit, type 333 inches, the comments. That number represents divine revelation and the voice of the Trinity Father, Son, and Holy Spirit aligning as one. When you type it, let it be more than a number. Let it be an agreement. You're saying, I receive the awakening. I welcome clarity. I choose to hear heaven clearly and walk boldly in what is revealed. This awakening isn't random, it's remembrance. Your soul is remembering what it was designed for, to hear, to see, to carry heaven's voice. From this day forward, walk aware. Every whisper could be instruction. Every moment could be divine. The prophetic wind is blowing, and you, chosen one, are standing right where heaven is speaking. Chosen one. For a long time you thought you were walking this road alone. You looked around and saw no one who truly understood your burden, your visions, or the silent wars you've been fighting. You began to believe that perhaps your path was meant to be solitary, that no one else carried what you carried. But heaven is revealing something now. You were never the only one. Across nations, languages, and time zones, others like you have been awakening quietly, faithfully, courageously. The gathering has begun. The scattered chosen ones, hidden in different corners of the world, are starting to recognize one another. It's not through coincidence or common interests, but through the vibration of the Spirit. When one speaks, another's heart stirs. When one rises, others sense the shift. Heaven is knitting together a remnant, a divine network of souls who have walked through the same fire, cried the same prayers, and carried the same light. This remnant is not bound by titles, churches, or denominations. They are connected by fire, by a shared awareness that God is calling for more than surface-level faith. They are the ones who can no longer live comfortably in compromise, who feel destiny pulsing stronger than desire. You are one of them, and whether you realize it or not, your obedience has been signaling to heaven that you are ready to unite with others of the same frequency. In ancient times, God always preserved a remnant, a small group that refused to bow, to blend, to forget. And He's doing it again now. While the world grows colder and many hearts drift toward distraction, heaven is gathering those whose spirits still burn. This isn't about superiority, it's about stewardship. The remnant doesn't exist to boast, it exists to build. Together, they carry the torch of awakening that will light the final stretch of humanity's story. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 21, a remnant will return. A remnant of Jacob will return to the mighty God. Dan, that verse isn't just history, it's prophecy repeating itself. God is calling his remnants home, not to a place, but to purpose. It is the return of devotion, the return of purity, the return of first love. The scattered ones are being drawn together by divine magnetism, each carrying a spark that, when united, will become an unstoppable flame. You may already have sensed it without understanding it fully. Maybe you've met someone recently who felt strangely familiar, even though you just met. Maybe you've stumbled upon words, songs, or messages that seem to echo what your spirit was already hearing. That's not coincidence, it's convergence. Heaven is aligning paths and connections so that the isolated embers can join to form fire. When this remnant unites, it won't look like an organization, it will look like movement. There will be no headquarters, no hierarchy, because its power comes from harmony, not structure. These are people led by the Spirit, not the spotlight. Some will speak publicly, others will intercede privately, but all will carry the same rhythm: unity without uniformity, power without pride. Your part in this gathering is essential. You are a voice, a pilar, a fragment of the greater design. Without you, something would remain incomplete. That's why your journey has been so difficult. It's been shaping you into a cornerstone that can bear others. The remnant isn't built of unscarred people. It's built of healed ones. Each story, each wound, each victory becomes a testimony that strengthens the whole. When the remnant comes together, the world will feel it, not through headlines or spectacle, but through sudden surges of compassion, justice, creativity, and revival. Heaven's current will run quietly but powerfully through ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It will be a movement of restoration. Broken systems will begin to mend. Lost voices will rise again, and sleeping hearts will awaken. Chosen one, take comfort in this truth. You are not alone in your fire. There are others who burn with you, who understand the cost and the call. The same God who found you in your wilderness is finding them in theirs. And soon your paths will cross, not for competition, but for completion. The scattered are returning to strength. The hidden are stepping into light. The remnant is rising, and you are part of its heartbeat. So, walk with your head lifted. Every prayer you've whispered in solitude is being multiplied through thousands of others who share your flame. The gathering is already underway. Heaven is aligning its warriors, not for war, but for restoration. You are one ember in a divine constellation, and together you will ignite the dawn. Chosen one, every loss you've endured has been recorded in heaven. Not one tear has fallen unnoticed. Not one disappointment has gone unmeasured. You may have called it failure, but heaven has always called it exchange. For every moment that was taken from you, something eternal was deposited into you. This is the mystery of divine compensation. Heaven never lets pain leave you empty. It transforms it into currency. For your next chapter, you have walked through seasons that stripped you bare. Friendships you thought would last faded into silence. Opportunities that once seemed secure slipped from your grasp. You gave your all, yet the outcome betrayed your expectation. And through it all, you wondered, why would God allow me to lose so much when I gave him everything? But you must understand, before divine exchange happens, subtraction always precedes multiplication. Heaven cannot fill what is already full. Loss feels cruel in the moment, because it blinds you to the transaction happening beneath the surface. But in the unseen realm, God has been trading your temporary attachments for eternal authority. What you lost externally, you gained internally: wisdom, endurance, discernment, and strength. The treasures of heaven rarely come wrapped in ease. They are mined through endurance. You have not been diminished. You have been upgraded through surrender. As the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 3, verse 8, "What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ." Those words cut deep because they reveal the true posture of divine exchange. What seems like loss in human terms is often gain in spiritual ones. God removes what cannot go with you so that what truly matters can finally take root. Think of your life like a vineyard. Each branch that bears fruit must, at some point, be pruned, not because it failed, but because it succeeded. The gardener cuts not to destroy, but to prepare for greater harvest. The pruning seasons hurt because you see what's being cut, but you don't yet see what's coming. Every snip is a promise of future fruitfulness. That is divine exchange in motion. Pain now, glory later. Even the people who left you were part of this process. Heaven often closes chapters through human exits. You may have cried over them, prayed for them, missed them, but they were never the end of your story. They were part of your refining, not your defining. Every departure has been a disguised deliverance. Some people's presence in your life was temporary scaffolding necessary for building, but not meant to remain. Once the structure stood, you are standing now in the aftermath of that pruning, wondering what's left. But look closer. You are stronger, wiser, calmer. You no longer chase validation. You recognize peace as proof. You no longer crave applause. You discern authenticity. Every loss peeled away another layer of illusion until only truth remained. That's what divine exchange does. It strips away what's false to reveal what's eternal. Heaven is preparing reimbursement, but not in the way you expect. The return won't always be material. It will be meaningful. Where you were rejected, you will receive recognition from the right hands. Where you lost stability, you will gain unshakable peace. Where you sowed in tears, you will reap in clarity. What once felt stolen will return, multiplied not as what you lost, but as what you were meant to hold all along. Sometimes, before God gives you what you prayed for, He must remove what you settled for. You thought you lost something essential, but you were really losing what was keeping you small. The exchange has been ongoing since the first moment you said yes to destiny. You surrendered comfort, and God gave you calling. You surrendered certainty, and He gave you revelation. You surrendered relationships, and He gave you discernment. You surrendered the old version of yourself, and heaven responded with transformation. Chosen one. Divine exchange is never a transaction of equals. It's always an upgrade. You give God broken pieces, and He returns beauty. You hand Him ashes, and He breathes out crowns. You surrender confusion, and He imparts wisdom that steadies nations. You are stepping into a season where everything you've lost will be restored. Not identically, but exponentially. When you look back, you will no longer see ruins. You will see evidence. Every loss will testify. He was there. He was working. He was worth it. You will realize that what you called subtraction was heaven's addition in disguise, and the glory that follows will make every loss feel light compared to the weight of what you've gained. Chosen one. The hour of separation has come, not the kind that divides people through pride, but the kind that purifies through purpose. You can feel it, something inside you no longer tolerates lukewarmness, the halfway obedience, the convenient faith, the shallow comfort. It all feels foreign now. Heaven is drawing a clear line between those who are simply inspired by truth and those who are transformed by it. You have reached the moment where decisions will define destinies. God is calling His people into clarity. The gray zones of compromise are disappearing, and light and darkness are standing face to face. This isn't judgment, it's alignment. Heaven is preparing to entrust authority only to those whose loyalty has been proven. You can sense it in your spirit, a subtle pull to let go of what once seemed harmless but now feels heavy. That's the Spirit separating you from the ordinary so you can carry the extraordinary. There is mercy in this separation. God is not dividing to punish, He's dividing to protect. You've prayed for growth, for deeper revelation, for anointing, and this is the cost. The higher you rise, the fewer voices can walk beside you. The summit is narrow, and only those surrendered to truth can ascend. You are not being rejected, you are being refined. The ones who cannot understand your current silence were never meant to hear your next sound. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 32, all the nations will be gathered before Him, and He will separate people as a shepherd. This scripture isn't just about the end of time, it's about the end of compromise. The shepherd is separating hearts now, calling His chosen to step fully into identity. The world is being sifted, and your commitment will become your distinction. And in this sacred hour, your voice matters. The way you live, love, and respond becomes light for others still trapped in confusion. Your journey isn't just personal, it's prophetic. Every act of obedience you display sends ripples into eternity. You may not realize it, but someone is watching your endurance and finding faith again. Someone is reading your resilience as revelation. That's why these messages exist, not as speeches, but as seeds. They are meant to water faith, to awaken the weary, to remind hearts that heaven still speaks. And if these words have found a home in you, let your agreement become part of their reach. You can help carry this flame further, not through grand gestures, but through simple acts of alignment. When you like this message, imagine you're placing another lamp on a hilltop, making the light a little brighter for the next traveler in the dark. When you share, think of it as sending out a lifeline across the waves. Someone out there, lost and tired, might grab hold of what you pass along. When you subscribe, you're not just following a page, you're joining a movement, a collective of souls awakened to their divine identity. And if you feel led to donate, do it not out of obligation, but as a spiritual echo. Giving is like planting trees whose shade you may never sit under, yet whose roots will bless generations. Every offering keeps the light burning. Every seed sown helps this voice reach another wilderness. The resources flow not to enrich a person, but to expand a purpose. You are part of that expansion. And as you engage, take a moment to comment below. Let your voice join the sound of awakening. Write what this word stirred in you, what moment it illuminated, what truth it confirmed. Your comment might be the confirmation someone else prayed for. Words carry weight in this realm, and your testimony might become someone else's turning point. Chosen one, remember, the final separation is not about exclusion, it's about elevation. God is setting apart those who refuse to blend in so that the world can finally see what holy distinction looks like. You were never made to fit in. You were made to stand out as evidence that heaven's remnant still burns. So, as the refining continues, walk humbly, shine boldly, and live faithfully. Let your life be a living sermon, your generosity a reflection of heaven's heart, and your engagement a declaration that you belong to the unshakable kingdom. The line is drawn, and you've already stepped across it. Chosen one, every thread of your story has been leading to this revelation. The veil that once clouded your understanding is lifting, and for the first time, you're beginning to see how everything connects. What once felt like random pain, fragmented seasons, and unanswered prayers now reveals itself as a divine pattern. The scattered puzzle pieces of your life are aligning into a tapestry that only heaven could have woven. You see, revelation is not new information, it's illumination. It doesn't change the events, it changes how you perceive them. When heaven unveils purpose, memories that once carried sorrow begin to glow with significance. You start to realize that even the detours were directions in disguise, and even the disappointments were disguised deliverances. Nothing has been wasted, not the storms, not the silence, not even the sins that drove you back to grace. There were moments when you thought you'd missed your calling. You cried out, "Lord, did I take the wrong turn? Did I delay destiny?" But heaven smiles at such questions because God's design is not fragile. You cannot ruin what He wrote. You can only delay your awareness of it. Even your wandering was woven into the root. The shepherd always knows how to find his wayward sheep, not with anger, but with orchestration. When you look back now, you can trace the divine fingerprints, the conversation that changed your mindset, the loss that redirected your focus, the pain that broke your pride, the kindness that revived your faith. Every thread, light or dark, was part of the same divine embroidery. You were never lost. You were being led through revelation you couldn't yet interpret. Heaven speaks through the ancient words in the book of Genesis. Chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to save many lives. That verse, once just history, now lives in you. What was meant to destroy you became the very soil from which your strength has grown. You are living proof that revelation transforms pain into purpose. What the enemy meant for harm has been converted into holy strategy. Revelation changes not just what you know, it changes who you are. It turns victims into visionaries, survivors into storytellers, and wanderers into warriors. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. Your scars have become maps. Your tears have become testimonies, and your wounds have become wells of wisdom. You no longer look at life as something happening to you, but something unfolding through you. This awakening comes with responsibility. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you understand, you cannot pretend ignorance. Revelation demands stewardship. The insights you've gained are not meant to stay contained within you. They are meant to flow through your words, your actions, your presence. People will begin to find peace simply by being near your stillness, because revelation carries atmosphere. You will walk into spaces and unknowingly bring alignment where there was confusion, healing where there was heaviness. You are stepping into a phase where your purpose is no longer a mystery, it's a mission. You will recognize the patterns faster, discern the seasons sooner, and move in obedience with greater confidence, because revelation breeds rhythm. You no longer panic when storms arise, you listen for instruction. You no longer complain during waiting, you anticipate unfolding. This is maturity, the ability to interpret divine timing without frustration. You've discovered that revelation isn't a one-time event, it's a continual unveiling. Just when you think you've seen it all, heaven pulls back another layer, revealing dimensions of yourself, your calling, and your creator that you didn't know existed. God is infinite, which means understanding him is an endless journey. Each revelation prepares you for the next, expanding your capacity to hold more of his heart. Sometimes, revelation will come as light, sudden, blinding insight that changes everything in an instant. Other times, it will come as dawn, gradual illumination that grows brighter with patience. Either way, the purpose is the same, to draw you closer to the mind of God. The closer you get, the more you begin to think like him, to see situations not as problems, but as processes, not as punishments, but as promotions. Chosen one. This is the sacred beauty of revelation. It redeems perspective. It teaches you to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" It shifts your heart from complaint to comprehension. You realize that every delay was a divine setup, every detour a disguised direction, every silence an invitation to deeper faith. Revelation doesn't remove mystery, it teaches you to walk in it with peace. And now, as you stand in this moment of clarity, heaven whispers, "Do you see now why I took you that way? The long road wasn't wasted, it was necessary. You were not being punished, you were being prepared." Every lesson, every loss, every prayer, every pause, it all had purpose. This is what it means to live under revelation, to walk with open eyes and steady heart, to trust even when you don't yet understand, to see God's fingerprints even in the ashes. You are no longer wandering, you are witnessing. The story makes sense now, and even the parts that still don't, you trust will soon unfold. For revelation never ends, it only deepens. Chosen one. The hidden season is ending. The long years of quiet preparation, the nights when heaven felt silent, the prayers that seemed to echo unanswered, all of it has been building toward this moment. You are standing at the threshold of coronation. Heaven is not simply visiting you, it is commissioning you. The fire you carried in secret is about to become visible, not for your glory, but as evidence of God's faithfulness. You have been through crushing and calling, through battles that no one else saw. There were times you thought the silence meant abandonment, yet it was actually anointing. God anoints in obscurity before he reveals, in light, like David, tending sheep before facing giants. You have been trained quietly for the authority you are about to carry publicly. Every hidden victory, every unseen surrender, every private yes to God has prepared your crown. But understand this, coronation is not a ceremony, it's a commissioning. Heaven does not crown for comfort, it crowns for calling. You are not being celebrated, you are being sent. The crown is not made of jewels, but of responsibility, and its weight will rest on your heart more than on your head. You will no longer live for personal satisfaction, you will live for divine assignment. This is the transition from being called to being chosen. You may not feel ready, but readiness has never been. Heaven's requirement, willingness has. The moment you said, "Here I am, Lord, use me," you qualified for this moment. The same God who began the work will empower you to finish it. What once intimidated you will now respond to you. Where you once walked in uncertainty, you will now walk in clarity, carrying the authority of someone who has seen both pain and purpose and found God faithful in both. As the Word of God declares in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 11, "I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown." That warning is not about fear, it's about focus. The crown is secure, but distraction is dangerous. Heaven is reminding you that your influence must remain anchored in humility. Power without presence corrupts, but power with presence transforms. Guard your devotion, for it is the oil that keeps your flame alive. This coronation will not be announced with trumpets, but recognized through transformation. People who once overlooked you will begin to see something different, a weight in your words, a light in your eyes, an authority that cannot be explained by education or experience. That is the mark of divine endorsement. You won't need to prove yourself, your presence will speak for you. Heaven's favor will rest visibly upon you, not to elevate ego, but to draw others toward encounter. The crown does not make you better than others, it makes you more accountable. It calls you to higher love, deeper forgiveness, and greater strength. You will be misunderstood, but you must remember that the crown is not decoration, it is declaration. It declares that you belong fully to God, that you have surrendered ambition for assignment, and that your life now belongs to something larger than comfort. You may find yourself leading without title, influencing without trying, healing without effort. That's what happens when a life fully surrendered becomes a vessel. You no longer chase opportunities, they recognize you. You no longer fight for validation, purpose itself bears witness. The anointing on your life will attract both light and opposition, but you will stand unshaken because your confidence no longer depends on approval, it depends on covenant. This season will also reveal the true meaning of authority. Authority is not control, it is covering. To wear a crown is to protect, to guide, to intercede. Heaven will entrust people, territories, and even atmospheres to your prayers. When you speak, shifts will occur not because of you, but because of the one who lives within you. Your crown is made of intercession, your throne is service, and your kingdom is influence born of compassion. Chosen one, you have been hidden long enough. Heaven is unveiling you now, not for applause, but for assignment. The light that once flickered in secret will now blaze publicly, and nations will feel its warmth. Walk with reverence, move with peace, speak with authority. You are no longer waiting to become, you are. The refining fire has done its work, and the gold of your spirit shines pure. The time of hiding ends here. Heaven places upon you the invisible crown of purpose, forged in suffering, polished by surrender, secured by grace. Wear it lightly, but wear it boldly. The same God who called you out of darkness is now sending you into it, this time as light. This is your coronation. Chosen one, not the end of your story, but the beginning of your reign in divine purpose. Heaven stands, watching, whispering one truth over you now. You have been prepared, and you are ready. Chosen one, take a moment to breathe. Let these words settle into the quiet spaces of your heart. You have journeyed through revelation, refinement, and restoration. You've seen yourself in heaven's mirror and recognized the mark of one who is chosen not by chance, but by divine design. The message you've walked through isn't just something to hear, it's something to live. Now you stand at the edge of something new. The wilderness has ended, the veil has lifted, and purpose stands before you, like sunrise after a long night. You don't need to rush into the next step, just walk in awareness. Every small act of faith is a ripple that touches eternity. The same voice that called you to listen through these words will continue to guide you when the page closes. And if what you've felt here has stirred something deep, hope, healing, conviction, renewal, then let it be known. Like this message as an act of agreement, a simple way of saying, I receive this word. When you share it, imagine you're passing light from your hands into someone else's darkness. Let it travel. Let it heal. Let it awaken. Comment below what this message spoke to you, your moment of recognition, your phrase of awakening. Someone reading the comments might find their confirmation in your words. You've walked this far not to stay silent, but to echo what heaven has done in you. And finally, subscribe if you haven't yet, not as a routine click, but as a declaration that you choose to stay connected to this flow of faith, this living river of divine reminders. Together, we carry light further than one voice ever could. You are chosen. You are seen. You are ready. The story continues through you.